So there you go. It's June 19th, 2017. Welcome to Let's Talk Native on the LTN Radio Network. This program breaks all the rules for Native radio. No buffalo speeches, no mystic healing, no special Indian prayers. We tackle the real issues facing Native people with look back at our glorious and our grave history, a tough look at where we're at now, and look forward to our ongoing battles for sovereignty and autonomy. Let's Talk Native is produced in association with Iroquois Promotions on the LTN Radio Network, streaming live from the Cattaraugus territory of the Seneca Nation, and simulcast and rebroadcast on the Gwe, CKWE in Tandanega. You can find our audio streaming at www.ltnradionet.com. And we are Facebook Live. In fact, we're Facebook Live streaming with our brand new camera. We're trying to do something new here. Don't have all the bugs worked out, but we've employed the use of a Mevo camera. And so we're going to see how this works out. And it allows us to do a little bit more editing on the fly. Eventually, although we're not doing it now, we're going to be able to connect directly to the internet instead of using Wi-Fi and MiFi. So we're hoping that the stream goes better, although we're still battling some of that stuff right now. Look, I'm John Kane, the show's host and producer. I'm joined by Matt Hill on the board. Matt Hill. I've got Ed Schiller joining us here as well. Kelly McMillan is our studio engineer, and she provides us some technical assistance, as well as does Jake Proud, who not only is securing our video and operating the Mevo,
working on the Wi-Fi,
and working trying to help us work out the kinks here. So Jake will not only help us with the stream here, but he will also produce a YouTube video of this show, so you can view that later, as well as the video from the live stream. So that's what we got working on here. Look, a couple of things I want to specifically address. One of the news items today has to do with the Supreme Court of the United States, the SCOTUS. They issued a unanimous decision supporting the idea of copyright protecting slurs, racial slurs, derogatory comments, offensive words. They
come on.
No, honestly, they upheld. You know the band The Slants? Have you heard this one?
No.
There's an American. I think they're an American Asian, but they're out on the upper northwest coast or something like that.
Kind of come back now.
They decided they wanted to name their band The Slants. So it's kind of like a black band using the N-word, right? So they decided to use a derogatory or word, a slur, for the name of their band. And they were denied copyright protection, so they couldn't copyright their name because the Patent and Trademark Office says, no, we don't believe that slurs, racial slurs, derogatory, offensive language is not saying that's not protected free speech, but they're saying it should not be afforded specific protection by the federal government through its Patent and Trademark Office. So they were denied this copyright. And of course, that's the same argument that's happening with the Washington football team. Jake had mentioned earlier about a motorcycle gang called the Mongols, who wanted to copyright that name, and they weren't allowed to either. But now that's all changed, because now in a unanimous decision, the Supreme Court upheld the right of this band to copyright their name as the Slants. Now, obviously, the folks in Washington football franchise are cheering this thing. They think that they've got this thing in the bag now because, at the end of the day, the Patent and Trademark Office had essentially pulled their copyright protection, and of course, it was all pending appeal. They don't even need to appeal it seems. It doesn't look very good for all of those people who thought the way to end the use of a derogatory statement or a derogatory comment or name, a racial slur, and the mascot issue in general. All those people thought the way to answer this was through the Patent and Trademark Office. And obviously there was some success there. But that has been stripped away by the Supreme Court. Now, again, and I've had to do this before.
Is the band any good?
I have no idea. Yeah, I don't know. Apparently, you can't insult them. So I don't know what that means. Because you can call them a derogatory slur and it won't necessarily be an insult. But here's what I want to say: the Supreme Court, for all those people who want to talk about the right-leaning court, the left-leaning court, and everything else, from a native standpoint, it just doesn't fly that way. There are certain aspects of the Supreme Court that never rule on the right side of issues. I mean, I know people say, yeah, but it's the Supreme Court. They're the highest court in the land. But I have to remind people, and this isn't just native issues, but it certainly does apply. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the liberal Jewish Supreme Court justice, cited the doctrine of Christian discovery to throw out the Oneida Land claim back in 2005. I mean, I can't get past that. I mean, so when you talk about the Supreme Court, yeah, it's easy to talk down guys like Scalia, who's passed away, or Roberts, or Alito, or even Trump's new right-wing justice. But the so-called liberal justice, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she cites a Christian doctrine, a Christian dogma. Why? Because this is all about protecting the status quo. So when so in the interest of claiming that they're trying to be so protective of free speech, and both the right and the left claim this, but at what point when you're offering not just acknowledgement that free speech does allow you to use these racial slurs, and I got a whole list of them right here. Hold on a second. Let me see on my trusty little sticker here. Niggers, gooks, kikes, spics, chinks, porch monkeys, wetbacks, towelheads, and of course redskins. But the interesting thing about this list, every one of those words is crossed off except for redskins, and apparently slants isn't crossed off yet either. I have never been that much of a fan of trying to sue for the end of the use of these racial slurs. I'm one of those people that think that you've got to call it what it is, and whether they can use racist language or not. Look, according to the FCC, there's only 7 dirty words you can't say, and none of these, no racial slurs. In fact, do you know what most of the 7 dirty words, what it's based on? Part of it has to do with excrement. Honestly, I mean, if a word is not just vulgar, but if it includes excrement, that's why number 1 and number 2 are on the list, and at least the slang of those words. You can say ota, you can say feces, you can say urine, but you can't say the S word, and you can't say the P word. Apparently on radio, and of course other there are other words. There's 7 of them all together, and I suppose I could list them on Facebook, but so again, I want to address this whole thing with the Supreme Court, because these guys they ruled unanimously in favor of offering not just acknowledgement under the free speech, but specific protection through the Patent and Trademark Office. Now that is pretty disturbing. So I know Amanda Blackhorse and Suzanne Harjo and all these people are probably just they've got to be pissed. And you could say that because I'm referring to being pissed off, not being pissed on. Apparently on radio, that's the difference. But anyway, so had you heard this before, Ed, or are you just kind of hearing this tonight?
I'm hearing about the decision, but I've heard the words that were not allowed on air.
Yeah, but I'm talking about this ruling, especially to offer trademark protection for racial slurs or for any kind of offensive.
Well, it's protecting freedom of speech, which means why do you have these 7 words you can't say on the air?
Well, I mean, I think that's a valid argument. I mean, so what's the point of the FCC banning 7 words, which I think one of them is a compound word, which includes one of the other 6, so that doesn't even make sense. It has to do with, it has an M and an F in it, let's just put it that way. No, there's just a lot bizarre about this whole thing. I mean, even though you can't say them on the radio, can you now get a copyright on those words? I mean, can somebody go in and say, I want to copyright nigger because I want to name a company that, or I want to name a band or a team that? I don't know. And and the question comes down now. So, is it wrong for a child in school to call an Asian kid a slant now? Now that that word is not only protected by free speech, but it goes so far as to protect it. So, oh no, I wasn't calling them. I meant they were a band member. I mean, this is part of the problem with this kind of language and this kind of. I don't think it was a stretch. I think the Patent and Trademark Office was right to say, look, we don't need to offer legal protection to certain words. I don't think we need to do that. I think they were right. Now, having said that, though, I'm not necessarily a fan of trying to legislate or criminalize some of these activities. I think when people say, well, we're going to pass a law that says that you can't use mascots. I know there's states that have done it. California's done it. There's other states that have done it. I think there are cities that have done it and that kind of stuff. And that's fine. Yeah, but why can't there just be enough common sense with the whole thing? I mean, this battle over native mascots and certain words in particular, like the R word, but really any of them. We've had this battle going on with several schools. Obviously, we had some local. There's still two, by the way, in New York State that go by Redskins. That's a Oriskany out near Utica, and Canisteo Greenwood, which is down by Hornell, down in the southern tier, east of Seneca territory down there. So, but those aren't the only schools. I mean, there's everything from Savage to Warrior to, Chief, Indian, and of course all the specific names. The Senecas, the Mohawks, or whatever else. I mean, they use all of those things. So little white kids get to run around with war paint and chicken feather bonnets and that kind of stuff, making a mockery of who we are, as if we're not here anymore. Now, there are people who, when you appeal to their judgment, like the school board at Lancaster School District here in Western New York, they get it, and they take the appropriate action. But apparently, 7 people on the Lancaster School Board got it, but the Supreme Court, the 9 people in the Supreme Court, don't get it. I mean, it's disturbing.
There's a school out in California in which they argued that they had the right to use an Indian name. They were called the Apaches. But then they were given the argument, no, because what it's doing is it's teaching and promoting racism. Because it wasn't the school that was named the Apaches with their mascot. It was the schools that they were going to be playing, because they started practicing scalping the
you're
opponents.
You're saying the school wasn't the one that was being disrespectful, but their opponents were.
But their opponents.
Well, that's kind of like the Philadelphia Eagles guy who takes an Indian, a rubber head, marks it up like a native head, puts a war bonnet, and then impales it with a knife and holds it up when the Eagles play the Washington football team. Or some of these teams that would put out a banner that says, "Get ready for another trail of tears." Now, you wouldn't see anybody do that against a predominantly Jewish school saying something like, "Get ready for the train to Auschwitz." But apparently it's okay to invoke the memory of that genocide that took place against Native people, where in total there may have been as many as 150,000 people that were killed in the forced marches and there's more. I just saw somebody post. They said there were actually 5 forced marches in the Trail of Tears. There were many more than that. There were people who were forced, not necessarily at gunpoint, the way everybody thinks of the specific Trail of Tears associated with the Cherokee, but there were not only 5 major forced military escorted marches, but there were people that were forced off their lands from all over the place. So the Trail of Tears is much broader than what anybody's ever taught in school. But I find I'm not surprised by this decision. I'm really not, because I have such a low regard for the U.S. Justice system anyway. And I guess what I am surprised at, though, I can't believe there wasn't a single Supreme Court justice who thought, we shouldn't really offer copyright protection for racial slurs. I mean, I just, that kind of blows me away, because I thought somebody would say, no, But no, unanimous decision. So there it is.
That really makes me start to wonder. Okay, how can anyone at any point be punished for anything they say?
Like hate speech and that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Where does the hate speech?
The hate speech.
I mean, is hate speech protected? I mean,
will be now.
Well, it seems so. I mean, and you just have to try to parse it in such a way that says, well, no, we didn't mean anything by it. Which is kind of like the whole Redskin thing, right?
But how does that stop hate crimes now?
Well, hate crimes, that's different than hate speech. Come on now. We all know the crimes are crimes, but speech is protected. It's solemn.
Well, just think if you were anti whatever, and you could copyright your people that you're against, and just you could own their name then. I mean, so it'd be free for them to use however way they want it.
Well, I think the copyright, it has to have a commercial application, but still that's not a heavy lift, is it?
Like a candy bar or something.
Yeah. I want to copyright Fag Bar.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole point. The whole point of this stuff is that they have really opened this thing up, because there are look. In a way, I kind of get it. I get some Asian, an Asian band decides that they want to use an edgy sound for a name for their band, something that they identify with, even if it is through a racial slur. I get that. And
well, let's call them up.
But yeah, we'll have them on the show. So as much as I get that idea, what I can't get past is the Supreme Court not acknowledging the fallout from a case like this. Now, I don't know, is this gonna be parsed out differently? Because in this situation you have the people who are referred to by the derogatory, I mean, it's kind of like black people say they own the N-word. I mean, the whole battle that these guys had with Bill Maher talking about using the expression house nigger. They who was it on his show? Was it Ice Cube or something like that?
Yeah.
He was on there and he says, "Look, that's not your word. You don't get to use it. And that's and he kind of gave it to him pretty good. But I thought he was actually too kind over the whole issue, to be honest with you. But so if a prominent black man is saying, no, we own that word, so if we use it, it's different, and I do get that. Frankly, I even get. What's the Mesa, Arizona, where the one of the high schools, I think they had a team. They called themselves the Redskins. And here's the reason. Not that I'm saying it's okay, but here's what I understand. And this goes back to our childhoods and all that stuff. There was so very little in the dominant culture for many Native people to have any attachment to. So, as a little kid, if you could have a Redskins jacket
with a logo on there,
with a logo and an Indian head on there, or a Cleveland Indians hat, or a Blackhawks jersey, or whatever else, no, I get it. And until you again become woke, as they say, until you wake up and you realize, that was inappropriate. That was inappropriate for them to use us that way. And then when you see a stadium full of people doing tomahawk chops or coming to a game in red face, there's just so much wrong. Or when you look at them putting tumblers and cheerleaders dressed up in Pocahontas outfits and the whole thing, making a mockery with our dance and regalia and all that stuff. It's hard to get past the idea that the Supreme Court, when making a decision like this, doesn't understand the distinction. Now, like I said, is there going to be a line drawn where a sports franchise like the Washington football team, who has no connection to being Native, but wants to use a derogatory slur to call themselves that, so they want to appropriate the name, image, culture, and all that stuff from people, is that going to be a line drawn by the Supreme Court? I doubt it. I think
it has to be understood by the public that a lot of our people are looked upon as past. They even do that in school. They teach past tense as if we don't exist anymore.
Well, I mean, in school specifically, let's be honest here, they when they teach American history, they teach it like we were a period that came and went. And, when they say Indians, discovery, colonization. Those are the periods of history. So first there were Indians, then there was discovery and colonization, and then there were no more Indians. And that's essentially, that's the way it's taught in school.
Conquering of the West.
Well, and even when they can't use words like that because there's no basis for it, that's the whole idea of conquest. Again, what's the expression? Manifest destiny.
Yes.
They even called it white man's burden. And these were all these expressions that that again empowered white people to do whatever they want to do.
And one example of that is this past year, Donald Trump, running for office, claimed there were no more American Indians. We didn't look like American Indians, therefore we didn't exist.
Oh, he's been saying it for years.
Yes.
Because he was getting his butt kicked in the gaming industry.
Yeah.
He just felt like these people pretending to be Indians are getting special treatment. So that was his reason for being so derogatory. Look, one of my friends, Cynthia Trice, she commented when I had already heard this on the radio, but she sent me a message about this ruling, and she again we kind of got a tongue-in-cheek banter that goes back, and she said something about I didn't know you weren't protected by the U.S. Constitution. She, oh, that's right, that's not yours. And I said the U.S. Constitution was written by white people for white people, and to the extent that any of it goes beyond the protections for white people, it's about being politically correct. It's about doing hypocrisy control. You know what I'm saying? It's about saying, we better. Maybe it's time we stop having slaves. We're the only country left, and it probably just doesn't look good. And it is kind of hypocritical based on the language in our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. Yeah, and it's not just about it being unconstitutional. It just doesn't look good. So we can't be hypocrites forever. We've only been this way for 100 years. We can't continue to be hypocrites. Of course, interestingly enough, there were many states that still had slavery well after the Emancipation Proclamation, well after the 14th Amendment, all that. So, I mean, it's you hear all this stuff and you realize, again, you put stuff in law, you legislate, you have court rulings, but at the end of the day, those are just words on a paper. Where does the rubber meet the road? And when you talk about things like hate speech, racist speech, the white supremacy, and that's where a lot of this stuff comes from. I mean, because trust me, yeah, you four guys in Seattle or wherever you're from, that congratulations, you've earned the right to insult yourselves. But when everybody else wants to do it, how are you going to feel about it? And when and Supreme Court, again, what the hell were you thinking?
Yep.
I mean, to think that you could protect language that is that is intended to, a racial slur means that it's intended to be derogatory, that it's intended to be insulting and offensive, and so I mean, this isn't just about the mascot issue. The mascot issue is another level of this stuff. I mean, and again, as we've discussed, the problem with the way Native history and present and future is presented to the American public, to the world at large, is that we no longer exist. Is that I mean, there's almost no place that I can't go where somebody says, I didn't even realize there were still Indians. We don't notice that when we live right here on native territory, and obviously the people around us. But when you travel, especially outside of your comfort zone, out of your own neighborhood, you'd be surprised how many people say, "Yeah, really? You guys still live in teepees?"
A friend of mine said that he had an acquaintance, or not acquaintance, a meeting with like a first generation Italian guy, and he's visiting the country or whatever, and he brought his whole family over to introduce him, to say that that he saw a native to witness a native person. They never saw any before. I mean, that's kind of like Greg Deal too. The same thing. Greg Deal said he had a whole tour bus or whatever that came up to him when he was in D.C. and they were amazed that there was an Indian.
Well, my friend Gogoy Laguerre, Art Montour, when we've done a lot of work together and traveled together, and you don't know how many times we've been someplace where somebody just will walk up and say, "Can I get a picture with you?" And it's not like he's famous. I mean, they really just wanted to take his picture because he represents the image of a native person because he wear either braids on either side. I mean, it's just the way he wore his hair. But so the whole idea that I don't know if they thought he was putting on a show for them or whatever else, and he'd accommodate them, but there was something just a little creepy about that.
Mm-hmm.
I've been places, and I don't know if you've had the same experience. I say that because you got a ponytail too? Yeah, right. Yeah, I've been in places where just women out of the blue think they can just walk up and grab your ponytail. Not so much guys. I mean, the last guy who did it wasn't being nice about it. We got thrown out of a concert for that, but that's a whole other story. But the idea that somebody thinks they can come in and touch your hair, and I've even had a few people ask me that, can I touch your hair? I'm thinking, I don't even want to tell you what my comeback is for that line, but I mean and that's not just because of having long hair. It's because there's the connection between being native and it's almost like they feel like they can, I don't know, take a piece of you. I don't know. I can't fully wrap my head around it.
I think something important to mention also is this decision defends freedom of speech. What they haven't paid attention to is going beyond speech, and that's where they do things like taking a head that's pierced and all that stuff. But what they're promoting is that it doesn't hurt anyone because all the Indians are gone anyway. All the native people have been terminated.
They're saying free speech, but they essentially what they're saying is free appropriation. You can take anything from anybody else's culture and it's okay. And it doesn't matter how offensive it is.
But what's really important to understand is that a lot of decisions in the courts are made because they don't perceive Native Americans as having any existence, so that there's nothing to protect. And therefore you get the Dakota Access Pipeline going through because it's not bothering anyone.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we're going to run these pipelines where nobody lives.
Yes.
And to back that up, I know we're at the bottom of the hour, but to back that up, the idea of terra nullius, which is a Latin word which means vacant land, that's what the Catholic Church promoted as a part of the doctrine of Christian discovery, was that if you go into the lands where there's pagans, where non-Christians, we don't have to count them as human beings. So they're vacant. So they don't exist. So if you go to native lands, you don't have to count them. And so you can't tell me that still doesn't exist when someplace like North Dakota, Bismarck says, no, we're not going to run the pipeline up here because we have people that live here. We're going to run it down here where nobody lives, except for Lakota. All right, hey, we're at the bottom of the hour. We'll take a break here, and we'll come back. We'll get back into it again. Got another issue I want to talk about. One, I'm going to surprise Matt with this because it's based on a conversation that I had with him. But let me give you. I'll give you 3 hints: red, white, blue. We'll take it from there.
I know this one.
thanks for coming back. There was a little bit of Frank Juan. What was the name of the track?
Just Aboriginal instrumental.
All right, that's again Frank Juan. Guy's made a pretty good name for himself, and we're happy to play some of his music here. Look, I want to talk about my sponsors. I do have some. I've got Ross and Holly John from the RJE family of businesses. I've got Eric White in ERW Enterprises. Robert Delamonte in Tuscarora Woodworks works with us here as well. I've got individuals who have made and do make contributions. My friend Ed Schindler supports the show. Tracy Brown, Cynthia Trice, Scott Snyder, Neville Spring, Sugar Montour, and many others who have helped the program in the past and have allowed us to really to educate, entertain, and inform for over 7 years. We're in our 8th year now, and I thank all of you, past and present, for supporting what we're doing here. We're in a constant state of trying to improve what we're doing here, offer more features. We've got a YouTube channel, Let's Talk Native TV. We bought a new Mevo camera, and although we weren't able to operate it off of an Ethernet cable, we will be doing that probably by Friday. We'll get that all sorted out, and we'll work all that out. And we think we can have higher quality video, both on the stream and we post afterwards. Of course, we've got high quality video done via Jake Proud with posting on Let's Talk Native TV. We're shooting video and keeping the audio there as well. We put it up in as many formats as we can. We have the audio on www.ltnradionet.com. We take that audio and post it up on SoundCloud so you can catch it there. We do 2 1-hour shows to make it a little bit more bite-sized, I guess. So somebody doesn't have to invest a 2-hour stretch necessarily to catch the show. You can catch an hour of it on a Monday, an hour of it on Friday, or pick it up anytime during the week. The video is reposted on Facebook, and of course we post it on YouTube. And all of the links, Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, we post all of it back on the Let's Talk Native group page. And I also posted on my Let's Talk group page. Those 2 pages, and if you're not on them, I encourage you to become members. Those 2 pages are associated with my 2 radio shows. This one, Let's Talk Native, and my show in New York on WBAI in New York City, which is Let's Talk with John Kane on WBAI. That is a 2-hour show, and that is a New York City talkback show, which means we get lots of callers there. Unlike here, and I know I'm not real good with getting the number out there, but let me see. What's the number again? It is, I got to look it up here. All right, 855-967-0463. That's the number to call if you want to join us. And right now, the way we're set up here is you can join us by calling that number, and that number gets you to CKWE, the Gway in Tandanega, and they'll patch you through, and you can join us and be a part of the show that way. Now, I've also got a new phone number associated with a cell phone that I will probably posting later on this week. That number will be available not only for calls during the live shows, but the number will be also available for people to leave a message, voice or text message. I will tell you right now that if you leave a voice message or text message, we probably will use it on the show, especially if we like what you say. And even if you don't like if we don't like what you say, we might want to use it just to kind of let people know what the opinions are that are out there. So that's I say all that because I think it's important that people realize how they can not just listen, but participate in the show. Of course, I want to thank Unity Stream and Apache Radio Net for providing our streaming, which provides the streaming for our LTN radio network. I want to thank CKWE again for simulcast and rebroadcasting the show, as well as Netroots Radio, Real People's Media, Indigenous Resistance Radio, and of course, all of you who share any of this, whether you share the SoundCloud links or the YouTube links or the Facebook links, you're all contributing to getting this network, helping us grow this network out. I do encourage you, though, to join the group pages. If you're not a part of the Let's Talk Native group page or the Let's Talk group page, you should be. I know I've got over 7,000 on the Let's Talk Native, and probably only about 1,000 on the Let's Talk show. So if you're on one, you should join the other. There's no reason to miss out because these Facebook group pages are not just vehicles for promoting the audio and the video. There are also links that all the members get to post things on. They get to post links for events that are coming up. Sometimes these events are associated with protests and resistance, and they could be movie events, they could be entertainment events, but they're all native issues, and that's what gets posted on these things. Links, videos, memes, cartoons. Some of those are pretty good as well. But that's what it's there for, and of course I offer my commentary on those pages as well, and look for others. So I mean that's what we do there. So. I encourage you to be a part of that as well. All right, so we kind of beat up on the Supreme Court, which they deserve because they suck, and frankly, they always have. I gotta tell you, going right back to Johnson v. McIntosh, where they codified the racist doctrine of Christian discovery doctrine. They're codifying that, back in 1823. All the way up through. I mean, when I think about Ruth Bader Ginsburg's decision, but the idea that they could make when they say what is unconstitutional versus constitutional, the idea that slavery could be constitutional until the 1860s, the idea that the idea of banning people from being able to vote could be constitutional, the idea that lynching and the failure to prosecute those crimes, scalping. I mean, the Removal Act under Andrew Jackson. When I go through it all, and I think how much the Supreme Court not only allowed but they actually paved the way. Some of the most racist legislation passed by Congress is after the road's been paved by the Supreme Court. And I don't think people realize that. When the modern expression now is, oh yeah, we can't have Supreme Court justices legislating from the bench. No, you guys do that from Congress and from state legislatures after the Supreme Court lays the path down for you. So I wanted to hit on some of that, which gets me to someplace else. But the next subject I want to talk about. So Matt. For Father's Day, your family treated you down at the Seneca Allegheny Casino for dinner.
Yep.
And you decided to take a look-see in the gift shop in the Seneca Allegheny Casino.
Yeah, that's
and what were your favorite colors there?
Well, as soon as you walk in the gift shop, it's a pretty good-sized section of American flag attire. There's
not just flags. We're talking about clothing.
No, it wasn't flags. There was no flags. But there was clothing with a full American flag on it. There was a display of red, white, and blue Seneca Allegheny Casino hats.
So they had both on it. They said Seneca Allegheny Casino and it was red, white, and blue?
Well, there were the hats themselves, but they're red, white, and blue ones in a display.
Okay,
there were bandanas that were flag bandanas, and it was just an assortment of different American flag attire.
Yeah.
And I was looking at that, and I was just like, geez. And it's like I said, as soon as you walk in the gift shop, so I asked. I said, who's the purchase manager? Because I seen the lady was straightening stuff up, and she told me the girl's name, and I won't say her name, but I said, I find it kind of offensive to see all that stuff that we're promoting that in our casino. And she goes, why is that? I said, well, why are we promoting a system that tried to annihilate us at one time? And she looked at me with that puppy, turned her head, to say puppy.
Like you said, a pitch that they don't quite register.
She said, well, they're not trying anymore. And I was like, well, I said, it's pretty significant in our history, and I just find that offensive. It's pretty much a slap. And the stuff has Seneca Allegheny Casino logos on it.
Yeah.
So
again, there's a part of me that says, look, I'm not America bashing, for the sake of upsetting patriots. But there's a difference between saying, I want to burn American flags and saying, nah, I just don't want to sell them.
exactly.
And so the whole idea
We
that
shouldn't be
that
promoting
the Seneca Nation, the sovereign nation, and I also understand that the clientele that is being served by these casinos is not us.
Mm-hmm.
The whole idea is to gain revenue from outside of our territories. That's the state hasn't figured that one out yet.
I even mentioned the 2-row sign that's on top of the hotel. So.
But again, I guess to get back to that place do you need to cater to that audience so much that you ignore your own history? And I think that's the question you raised.
Yep.
And yeah, I know the other day we saw our little kids walking along the street during their Flag Day and they've got every one of those kids carrying an American flag. Nobody asked them,
Mm-hmm.
And of course the native kids don't even really know any better. And to the extent that even if they did say, you know what, I'd rather carry a Seneca flag, or maybe a Hiawatha flag, a Hiawatha Belt flag, or maybe even a warrior flag, or AIM, or missing and murdered indigenous women. They're not given an option. No, it's Flag Day. It's American Flag Day, and you're going to carry a flag, damn it. And so we got 4-year-olds that learn how to pledge allegiance to the flag. Our kindergartners learn how to sing the national anthem with no sense. And the Pledge of Allegiance I find particularly disturbing because it is a pledge of allegiance. Now I know those words don't necessarily register because I know what the Pledge of Allegiance is. Yeah, it's the words you say. No, it is a pledge of allegiance. So you're indoctrinating a 4-year-old to make, by all accounts, a solemn pledge of allegiance to a country that has spent 200 years of its history trying to obliterate us, either through, direct, murder,
multifaceted,
through assimilation, all of which qualify and I would argue still qualify as genocide. Mm-hmm. There are many actions that are still being legislated. There are policies legislated that are tantamount to genocide. The United States can't even meet the minimum standard established by the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. They don't free, prior, and informed consent. That doesn't exist. Otherwise, there wouldn't be the Dakota Access Pipeline. We wouldn't be having a debate about the Keystone XL pipeline. None of that stuff. So the irony, not the irony, the hypocrisy of it all, and the idea of using schools as the breeding ground or the foundation for propagandizing all that is great with America is just wrong. I understand teaching American history, but damn it, tell some truth.
That's the thing that gets me is what do people really believe is the allegiance to that? Do they totally understand American history? And what version is it that they were sold? Because the United States is not one of the nicer countries in the world that
they certainly have not earned the moral authority to say we are the gold standard to judge human rights and civil rights or any of this. They don't. They haven't earned that anywhere.
They've done the opposite. They basically throughout their history have proven through policies what they do, not what they say, but what they do, and what they have done has been proving that they are just the opposite of what they claim to be. They are not just, they are not free, they are not equal. None of that stuff exists in the U.S., and that's based on policies that they follow.
Well, and in spite of the ridiculous rhetoric that comes from the current guy who sits in the White House, the policy of the United States has always been about exploiting everybody. Yes. The United States has its own, imperialism, colonization, all of that stuff was not just the purview of Europe. The United States has a role. Like I said, I was listening to NPR and they were telling the stories of the book that was written about the United States in the Philippines, and the author actually had the nerve to suggest that for the first time, American troops were actually engaged in warfare against people fighting for freedom. I'm thinking, well, you dirty MF thing that I can't say on radio. You got to be kidding me. In fact, I even messaged in Robin Young. It was Here Now or something. I don't know, whatever the name of the show is. But and I said, you could actually sit there in a straight face say that in the Philippines was the first time American troops were shooting people fighting for freedom? What the hell do you think Native people were fighting back for? And yet that's what they said, and they believe it. And then so not only does it get taught in history classes, if that even gets taught in history classes, because that you want, oh yeah, they were shooting Filipinos, but to have in a novel and a guy getting speaking tours with NPR officials saying, oh, that's the first time, and that it was the end of innocence. They literally said that the imperialism of the United States going into the Philippines and Guam and Puerto Rico and all that Spanish-American War stuff where they claimed all those territories, that it was the end of innocence for the United States. The fact that in the entire century of the 19th century, from again 1823 with the Johnson v. McIntosh decision, and of course before that, but all the way up through to the massacre at Wounded Knee, it was a full century that had nothing to do with innocence. It had everything to do with just absolute heinous behavior, all permitted by church doctrine, by American policy, and orchestrated through military action. And of course, it gets backed up by the Supreme Court, and of course, it gets fought, enforced by the U.S. military or policing agencies. So, again, backing it all the way up, I understand that the enterprises that we're involved in, on our territory, the businesses. I know there's people selling fireworks in smoke shops. And why? Because it's coming up on 4th of July, and that's when people buy fireworks. Okay, I get it. You don't necessarily have to light them off on the 4th of July. But when you are making your part of your revenue associated with promoting specific patriotism of the United States with red, white, and blue paraphernalia, I just don't think that we have to be in that business. I think that there's enough places that people can go, to buy that stuff. They can go to Walmart. In fact, Walmart, even when they prominently display their flags, they have to make a point of it, by the way. They said, made in America. Because almost nothing else in Walmart is made in America. So the flags that they have sold there, actually, they claim that they were made in America. Now, the material is probably made in the Philippines or in Taiwan, but they probably had...
They put a stick on.
They hemmed it. they did the hemline.
No, that's already done. They just put them on a stick.
Yeah, put them on a stick. Oh, yeah, made in America. Yeah, so I don't know. But no, I understand your frustration. A few years back, Matt, I remember you and I talking about the Seneca Fall Festival, and they do a parade in the beginning of it, and all the guys who you think, if there's ever people who are going to take the stand on issue, it's the bikers, right? All the guys lined up on the motorcycles, and almost every one of those motorcycles had an American flag on it, either on the handlebars or on the back seat. There were more American flags than you could imagine on everyone, and all Native people on those bikes, all with American flags. Not a single Iowenta flag, not a single Seneca flag, and heaven forbid, there was never a Warrior flag.
Well, I can say that I'm proud that we took a Warrior truck there.
Yes, we did.
The monster truck that was the Warrior monster truck. And
yep.
We made a show.
Prominently displayed it. Yes, we did.
In fact, I drove the maiden.
Yes, you did. That was one of your...
The maiden run of that truck.
Your
I
chance
drove
to run it over some cars and get some air under it. It was pretty impressive. If you don't know what the Warrior truck was, we'll post a pic on our Facebook page. We actually... Matt and I worked with Bobby Robbins, who has another monster truck, Aftershock. We worked with him, and we developed a monster truck that had the Warrior logo on it. It was called the Warrior, and I actually got permission to use it, and it was pretty impressive. And I got to tell you, as impressive as it was hard to get sponsorship. Is one of the things that was.
I want to do a show on that myself.
Yeah, we do. We need to do a whole show just on the attempt, on what we attempted, and we'll post a bunch of pictures on it. But we've even got some video. This truck actually was a part of a major performance in the Olympic Stadium in Montreal. It was phenomenal. I mean, I went up there, and of course, there's a lot of Mohawks up in that neck of the woods, and so the idea of seeing that, I mean, I had people, I had almost a receiving line where people were coming up and just wanted to talk to us about it because they were blown away to see a truck with that image.
The intent of the truck is to spread a Native message around, and me being the only Native American crew chief in all of the monster trucks,
Yep.
that was my chance to be a positive role model, showing that we're not, beads and buckskin
And let it be a discussion piece. The whole
Yeah.
idea was to use it to do what we're doing here, to be a conversation. So that's what we had done there. But again, I know there's plenty of American flag waving on native territories, and one of my criticisms that I had about Standing Rock was, even as the United States is jamming a pipeline down their throats there, they've got American flags flying all over the place. And I still say that at some point, I'm looking for the first native territory. I know it's been done. I mean, I've seen Hawaiians take the American flag down and put their Hawaiian flag up. But I haven't seen a native territory willing to say, you know what, this isn't meant to insult the United States, but the relationship is not it's not equitable. We don't have a fair and honest relationship. You continue to be condescending and treat us as if we are to be submissive to you, and we have no reason, when we erect flagpoles around our administration building or our traffic circles to see it through to hang an American flag on it. When you want to pay us the due respect, then maybe we'd be willing to share your flag. But at this point, I would. So, I mean, it was an interesting thing. I know these were two issues that. Again, Supreme Court of the United States making this decision, not a native decision, but a decision that's going to impact the whole mascot debate. I don't anticipate with this ruling that the schools who have changed, Lancaster or anybody else, is going to turn around and say, "Oh, good, I guess we can have it back now." But I think those that have been entrenched in it and those who dug in, like the Washington football team and perhaps some of the schools that are still clinging on to this racist act, will dig in a little deeper because they've got the Supreme Court of the United States on their side, and that's unfortunate. And of course, I wanted to touch on again this what appears to be this silent love affair that Native people, in spite of the atrocities committed against them, still seem to have with American patriotism. And I
that's because we have the skewed historical reference that's what we've been taught in school.
And a little bit of Stockholm syndrome too.
We look at that glorified version of America, and people say, "Well, you're American. You're Americanized."
Oh, you're the first Americans. You guys are better than Americans. Yeah. You're the first Americans.
1923. You're all American citizens. Was it 23 or 44?
Yeah, 23. Yeah. No. Was it 24? Yeah, 24. Yeah.
24. Okay.
Yeah, the Citizenship Act.
But see, people believe that now. That's just the way we're programmed.
Yeah. All right, folks, we're pretty much out of time. I want to let everybody know I will be in New York this week, so if you want to catch a Let's Talk with John Kane and Shawnee Rice on WBAI in New York City. We're on from 10 till noon on Thursday mornings. You can stream it on WBAI.org. I will post the audio up afterwards. If you happen to be in New York, you can tune us in at 99.5, right in the middle of the FM dial. We're still working out some of the kinks with our Mevo device. I probably won't take it to New York this week, but next week, because I want Jake to get a chance to. We've got to reconfigure some of our internet access here in studio, and once we know how to make it work most effectively here, then I'll start playing around with it, taking it on the road.
I just got to say, when it was working, it's a really awesome device here.
Well, yeah, and it is a game changer, and you will see as we go forward that it will be a game changer in terms of the quality of the video.
Will be a lot better.
Yep. So we look forward to it. So again, thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us for the hour. We'll be back here on Friday, but if you want to take a stroll through WBAI on Thursday morning, you're welcome to join Shawnee and I. And I'm not even sure what we're going to address yet, but that's how we roll. We make it up on the fly. So anyway, we'll catch you guys on Thursday. If not, we'll see you on Friday night. Thanks. Yahweh.